It's recap time. I bring you one more recap. Today I will be explaining an action thriller movie called No Way Up, released in the year 2024. The movie opens with a woman drowning in the ocean. Then a man wakes up and it was his dream. The man's name is Brandon, and he is a bodyguard who works for the governor of California. He gets dressed and heads to the airport. At the airport, we see two friends, Jed and Kyle. They are waiting for Jed's girlfriend, Ava, who is the daughter of the governor of California. Ava arrives at the airport, but the guys are bummed out because Ava's bodyguard, Brandon, is with her. Ava greets the guys, and Jed takes her aside to talk about Brandon. They are going on a trip to Cabo, and Jed prefers privacy, so he is bothered by Brandon's presence. Ava mentions her father insisted, so Brandon had to come. Now we meet another family of two grandparents named Marty and Hank, along with their granddaughter Rosa, who is visiting from England. They are also heading to Cabo on the same plane with Ava and her friends. Marty goes shopping while Hank and Rosa head to the departure lounge. Rosa drops her toy bear while Ava walks behind them discussing her exit from the law school so she can intern at her dad's charity center. She notices Rosa's teddy bear as the guys encourage her to finish law school. Rosa later notices her toy bear named Mr. Tibbs is missing, so she runs back to look for it and runs into Ava. Ava spills her coffee on her clothes and gets angry, so Rosa runs back to her granddad. Ava realizes she saw Rosa's toy, so she retrieves it for her and apologizes. Now, they board the plane, but the guys take Ava back to coach seats, despite Brandon mentioning their flights being economy. Before flying, the flight attendants instruct everyone of safety measures, and Kyle starts making fun of a male flight attendant named Danilo. After the plane takes off, Ava is a bit anxious, so Kyle scares her more by mentioning how weak the plane wings are. Moments later, Rosa notices the plane jets getting hit by birds. The pilot assures everyone that everything is fine, but Rosa notices now that the entire jet is damaged and about to blow up. The jet's body starts to deteriorate, and a shard pierces through the plane window, causing the plane to blow a hole in it. Passengers start getting sucked out of the air as the hole widens. The air hostess tries to save a man, but both of them get sucked out of the plane. The remaining passengers are holding on to their seats as the plane lands into the ocean. Brandon gets stabbed with a shard while some passengers die. The plane enters deep water and lands on a steep surface in the ocean while water starts entering the plane. The flight attendant, Danilo, checks on the Ava, Jed, and Kyle. Danilo hears something approaching them from the water inside, and it's Rosa along with Brandon, who rescued her and her grandma. Marty is unconscious, so Danilo gives her CPR and saves her life. Rosa asks where her grandpa is, but Brandon reveals he's dead. Jed starts panicking, so Brandon scolds him to remain calm while Kyle's arm is broken, so Brandon mentions helping him later. They don't get any reception, so Ava decides to leave the plane through the hole, but Brandon mentions it's too much trouble and they should just wait for help to arrive. Danilo assures them the pilot must have radio contacted the base before crashing. Brandon mentions needing oxygen, so Danilo checks the oxygen tanks, but they're empty. Marty mentions seeing a medical oxygen tank with a passenger next to them, so Brandon decides to retrieve it. He goes back in the water zone, but there is a shark looming outside. He finds the oxygen tank and is about to return, but the shark attacks him. Somehow, Brandon makes it back to them and hands them the tank, but he is bleeding heavily. He tells Ava she is on her own and she will make it out alive, but suddenly he gets pulled back by the shark, and it eats him. The survivors see the shark's tail and move back to the cabin room. There, Marty decides to fix Kyle's arm. She twists his bone to adjust it and then bandages his arm. They decide to wait for help, and the help arrives. The rescuing helicopter arrives at the scene and searches for the plane's crash site. The pilots are accompanied by two scuba divers, and their priority is Ava, the governor's daughter. Back on the plane, Danilo asks Marty where she learned to fix broken bones. Marty reveals she was a nurse in the army, and she was stationed in Iraq, and that's where she met her husband Hank. Rosa sees a shark outside the window, and it scares everyone. Meanwhile, the rescue team can't locate the crash site. Jed and Kyle are worried that the plane's structure might break anytime soon, and they'll die. Unexpectedly, The plane starts moving down the surface and stops at the cliff of the surface, causing the water levels inside to increase. Ava suggests leaving the plane, and Kyle reminds everyone that he saw 2 passengers with a green bag and scuba diving equipment. Meanwhile, the helicopters locate the crash site and hover over it so their scuba divers can dive in. The divers swim around in the ocean and find the crashed airplane. They swim towards it as Ava and the other notice them from the window. The diver assures them they're safe, but a shark approaches him from behind. Everyone tells him to turn around, but the shark disappears when he turns. The diver is puzzled, but he gets pulled by the shark. They all hear noises and see the severed leg of the scuba diver. They all wonder if the second scuba diver entered through the hole, but he hasn't arrived yet, so they assume he died too. The helicopter pilots are low on fuel, and it's been more than 15 minutes since the divers went in the ocean, so they return to base for refueling. Ava decides to look for the second diver to take his scuba tank. She enters the water and sees something, but isn't sure what. Jed slips and falls in the water, but he is just messing around, only to get attacked by an actual shark that bites his leg off. Luckily, they manage to save Jed and quickly stop his bleeding by tying a seatbelt on his leg. Jed loses hopes of surviving and encourages Ava to survive, but Marty gives them hope and motivates them. Ava decides to go to the cargo area to retrieve the green bag for diving equipment. She dives with a flare, unknowing there is a shark inside as well. She finds the bag, but an octopus scares her. She makes it back with the bag, but there are only 4 wet suits, while there are 6 of them. Kyle notices Jed is slowly dying. Ava tries to keep him alive and apologizes for bringing him to this trip. Marty checks Jed's pulse and doesn't find any. Ava gives him CPR, but Jed has lost too much blood, so he passes away. The water level is rising more, so Ava decides to move out, but Kyle is chickening out. He reveals his childhood trauma of his dad not rescuing him from the ocean when he almost drowned. Ava and Rosa convince Kyle, so now they move forward with their plan. They all wear their wet suits, but Marty refuses to wear hers. Danilo helps Kyle wear his suit while Kyle asks him what his plans are if he survives. Danilo reveals he plans on marrying his partner. They all wear their life jackets and move into the water, but realize the plane is tilting downward. Ava and Kyle look outside of the windows and see the plane is on the edge of the tilting surface. Marty has other plans for herself, so she tasks Ava to look after Rosa. Ava and Rosa move first into the water to find the scuba diver. They come across a shark, so Ava uses a spare life jacket to create bubbles, which scare the shark away. Back in the cabin, Danilo and Kyle also dive into the water, but Marty stays back. She sits back in the cabin and prays to Hank to look after Rosa. The plane roof breaks, and water comes flooding in the cabin as well. Kyle can't hold his breath anymore, so he turns back to the cabin side, where there is little room to breathe. Danilo tries to rescue Kyle, but Kyle gets attacked by a giant shark, which kills him. Danilo escapes and joins Ava and Rosa, who find the scuba diver. They use his oxygen tank to breathe and then decide to take it off of him. Danilo wears the oxygen tank jacket while the girls breathe from it. Danilo and Rosa exit from the plane hole and pull the cords on their life jackets, which inflates their jackets, allowing them to float back up to the surface of the ocean. Ava is about to leave, but she gets cornered by a giant shark. The shark doesn't attack Ava and swims to the other side of the plane. Ava notices more sharks coming from the front, so she heads towards the head of the plane, but the plane now starts to descend towards the deeper pit of the ocean, pushing Ava backwards. She manages to exit the plane, but the massive pressure of the plane still holds her down, so she passes out. Luckily, her life jacket helps her reach the surface where she gains conscious. She looks for Rosa and finds her toy bear. Eventually, rescue choppers arrive and rescue her. She climbs the chopper and finds Danilo and Rosa there. Ava gives Rosa her bear, but she throws it in the ocean, claiming not to need it anymore. She asks where her grandma is, and Ava reveals Marty died. Ava holds Rosa in her arms, and the movie ends here. I hope you liked this movie recap. Please comment down on what you liked about this movie and what scene you liked, and don't forget to subscribe. See you in the next video.